All right, we're live. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Mike, for coming on the show in such short notice. I wanted to get you on. I saw your tweet that you had coronavirus and that you were kind of feeling better now, and you had been feverish for a while. Then you were about 5 days without fever. So I wanted to get you on the show and talk about your perspective and see how this kind of came about. So how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling I'm feeling a lot better. There were some really rough days. The blessing was that I never have any serious respiratory symptoms. I had some, but not. They were very mild. But now I'm feeling good. I still get more tired than I normally would. I've but we can talk more about it as we go. But yeah, I'm feeling better.
Okay, well that's good because I know when I saw that a lot of people were kind of talking about uh, kind of looking out to see how you were doing and wondering if you were feeling better or you're back to yourself and that kind of thing. And I myself I reached out to you and asked if if you're doing okay, if there's, I mean, obviously there's not much I could do over here in Saudi Arabia, but but like immediately you kind of get that feeling like, well, is there something I can do? Is there something I can do to help? But I'm glad that you're feeling better. I'm glad that the worst is past.
Yeah, what a, I am blessed in my life with so many wonderful family and friends, and the Twitter community has been amazing. The PhysEd community, not only in their support of me, I just so many people reached out. It was really wonderful, but just in what they're doing for each other and helping each other through this, it's pretty amazing. Because I know a lot of teachers, they have support from their districts, but the fact, and how the PE community is coming together is amazing to watch.
And I think a lot comes from some of the work that you've done, well, a lot of the work that you've done in trying to figure out ways that you can create an educational environment in your home. And that's for a lot of us is not necessarily natural, right? Like we go to work, we come back to our homes, and that's where we get away from work and we kind of relax and we chill. And so a lot of these parents and even distance learning, the teachers who are in distance learning, they had to figure out how to create these kinesthetic classrooms, so to speak, in the home without much guidance, right? So everybody has different circumstances, but seeing what we can do around the house to keep kids moving, to keep kids learning, to keep kids motivated, a lot of that came from your work.
Oh, well, thank you. There's a lot of people out there doing good work. I've been working on this since, gosh, about 2006, 2007. It's been a while, and it's important for me that the work keep going, and hopefully I've done my part and have at least been part of the conversation. And I did do a 10-minute video for ECIS about a week ago,
Hmm.
for parents, for ECIS members who are heads of schools and teachers and their parents, and they're at home. And just, I didn't get into too much specifics because I only had 10 minutes, but just how important it was to keep their children moving and to use that as a learning tool. Let them express what they've learned physically, in the middle of their lesson at home. Make sure they're getting up and moving before they begin their work, to get our brains primed for learning. So I felt fortunate to be able to create that for ECIS.
Yeah, and I actually created a little Google slide with different gifs of myself doing different exercises, and a lot of them came from, the work that you've done, some of your books, and you mentioned back in I think it was, when did we first meet? Like 2007, 2006, something like that. We
It
met
was,
a
it
long
was,
time ago.
you know what, Jorge, I'm going to
No, it
guess
probably
that it
was.
was like 2008.
Yeah, it probably wasn't that long ago, but yeah, it's been a while. And I
Yeah.
remember we met at action-based learning training,
Yeah. In
and a lot of
Indianapolis.
this. I'm sorry.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, I was in Indianapolis. It was at the super school there, and a lot of the stuff that I've been putting out came from that training, and like I said, from your books and from some of the work that you've done. So yeah, so thank you for doing that and being able to create something like that and then put it out for people to, like you said, prime themselves for learning or just take a break. Sometimes even parents just need to take a break and do a little bit of exercise and get loose again before sitting down at the computer, and going back to work that way.
Absolutely. And that's what my work has been for, is for people to use in many different ways. And I thank you very much for, um, getting it out there and having it be part of what you're doing.
So tell me your story. So how did this come about? How did you figure out that you had corona?
Well, the fever started.
Yeah.
It was so, and people ask, well, where did you get it? And there was a social gathering um, early on in March, and there's been a handful of people that have been positive from that gathering. And just a day or two after that, the fever started.
Really?
And it never got above about 100.5. But I tried to figure this out last night. I had about 16 straight days of fever,
Wow.
and it just wears you out. I was so tired. So that's when I first thought, you know what? But then I would feel better, um, and 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 then I would get worse. Probably from taking Tylenol all the time,
Mm.
until the point where I was like, you know what? I don't feel well, and that's when that's my daughter really pushed me to get tested, because it affects her life as well. Because
Yeah.
she lives in Pittsburgh, but now she's back here with us for the time being while she's working from home. And so that's when I called my doctor and had a telemed appointment.
So at that point, did you were you fearful at all that you had spread that to your family or people around you that you had been in contact with?
Uh, yes, but you know what? After that social gathering, early on in March, that was the
Mhm.
last time I saw anyone. Um, I was fearful. I had still, yeah. I want to say, yeah, I wasn't in a store. I just didn't do anything once that fever started.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that my wife and daughter, they haven't been tested, but my wife could not taste or smell for about 10 days.
Wow.
And my daughter, she most likely had it, but she's asymptomatic, so she's been fine.
Wow, that's interesting. Listening to different stories of how it affects different people. Some people get the really hard flu-like symptoms. Not being able to taste or smell. That's the first time I've heard that one. But it
Yeah,
it
if you
affects
research
people
it a little
differently.
bit, yeah, it's one of the symptoms.
Yeah.
Um, but she didn't really have anything else except some aches. I mean, she's a college volleyball player. She's pretty athletic, and is never sits down. Hard for her to sit down. But at
Wow.
one point, she couldn't even stand up. She bent over to get some things off the floor, and she couldn't stand up. If she was that achy, she had to pull herself up with furniture. Um, so yeah, it affects us all in different ways.
Yeah.
I got to the point. There was a 5 or 6 day period where I had the fever. I had headaches. I was dizzy. I was
Mhm.
nauseated and hungry at the same time. I probably had lost, in the first 12 or 13 days, I want to say I probably lost about 5 or 6 pounds. I mean, this is the nitty gritty that you really don't hear people talk about. I mean, I was changing clothes twice a night, and showering twice a day, because I was just sweating all the time.
Wow.
And it's a good thing to let your body just deal with it in that way. At the same time, it's really uncomfortable. And so I would take Tylenol, because it was really hard to take.
So, did you think in the beginning stages, did you think maybe you had the flu, or did the alarm bells go off and say, and did you think, well, maybe I have this coronavirus that's been going around?
The timing of it was too great.
Hmm.
I was hoping for flu, but I kind of guessed that I had it, just because of the constant. I'd never have fever like that in my life. I've had the flu before, but not a fever for that long a period of time. Um, so yeah, it's interesting, to feel that way. It makes you feel vulnerable. For the
Yeah.
first time in my life, I truly felt vulnerable. But we had, just in Berks County, just outside of in Reading, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, Berks County. Our cases are increasing, and just yesterday, a 46-year-old died
Wow.
here in Berks County. So it was an interesting feeling. Um, I'm pretty fit, and I've tried to take care of myself, and I thought that I would pull through this okay, but there were some doubts a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's interesting how it affects different people in different ways. Because in the beginning, we kind of heard that it was mostly the elderly or people who might have some immune deficiency problems. Um, but now you're seeing people in their 40s suffering from it and not making it sometimes. And so it's kind of sobering, isn't it? That, like you said, you are vulnerable, and it's this invisible thing that could affect you in such a way that it affects well, it has affected the world, right? And it's a really sort of a scary thing.
It is very scary. I mean, I think the data says, probably still the elderly
Hmm.
and people with underlying conditions are most vulnerable. Um, but having said that, people that are younger sometimes have died and have gotten severe cases.
So I know we kind of talked about this before we started the show, but we talked about Chris Cuomo from CNN. He has the coronavirus, and I heard him talking in an interview about some of the different activities or exercises that he's doing to help him kind of get through this. And he was talking a lot about sort of the mental fortitude as well. So there's a physical side, but then there's also the mental side that you have to get through. Could you talk a little bit about that? What are some of the things that you're doing to help you kind of get through this?
Sure. Of course, the brain body connection is my life, and I
Hmm.
do believe in the power of thought, how it can heal, how it can make us sick. One of the first things I talk about in my TED talk is that biomedical researchers now know that cortisol, which is a powerful hormonal byproduct of stress, is also a powerful immune cell inhibitor.
Yeah.
And that when we raise the danger flag too often, when we keep the accelerator down too long, we get used to living at higher levels of stress. Our body gets used to that, and eventually we just end up sick. Every teacher knows this answer when I talk about it in a professional development. And so the power of thought is incredible. And it's been really interesting, Jorge. Am blessed with what I call the superpower of gratefulness. I am a naturally grateful person. I am truly blessed with a wonderful life, and I'm surrounded by wonderful people, and I'm a pretty positive person. And so I think that really helps the body to heal, because the brain and body and the thoughts, and love Deepak Chopra's quote, your immune system is constantly eavesdropping on your inner dialogue.
Mm.
And it's so true. And so I try to keep a positive attitude. I have to tell you this too, just being very honest in this interview. In the months leading up to getting sick, my mother died in July, and
I'm sorry to hear
both my
that.
parents have passed away. Both my kids, they're 23-year-old twins. They've moved on with their adult professional lives. About 6 weeks ago, we put our 16-year-old dog down, and
Oh,
so I was feeling like, wow, no one prepares you for this,
yeah.
right? You have a career, and you go to college, you have a career, you have a family, but no one really prepares you for that next step. And I was feeling a little bit lost, to be honest. But in the middle of this coronavirus thing, I was like, Mike, you know what? Enough now. You're good. You have a great life. You're surrounded by great people. When you get a virus like that can threaten your life, no more. I try to stay in the moment. I try to move forward. I'm grateful for everything in my life, and I have a lot more to give, and I have a lot more discussion to have, and I
Yeah.
have a lot more to offer to people. So I'm good. So the coronavirus kind of fixed my brain a little bit in that way. And physically, I've just been trying to walk when I can. I this weekend in my brain, my plan, I'm now 9 days virus free. I'm 9 days fever free,
Hmm.
and I'm going to begin, doing push-ups and chin-ups, and maybe get on my mountain bike and see if I can handle it or not.
Yeah, just kind of taking it slow and kind of getting back into your routine.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really, really anxious to get back into my routine.
And that's one of the things, because we've been doing distance learning now, and for it must be like 3 weeks to a month now that we've been doing distance learning, and I have two kids in middle school, and it throws off your routine so much, you know. And then here in Saudi Arabia, we've been on lockdown. Basically, we have a curfew that goes from 3 p.m. to 6 a.m. And so we have to be in our houses at 3 o'clock. And they advise us in our compound not to go out of our houses unless we need essential items. So if we have to go grocery shopping, one person per household can go grocery shopping.
Wow.
And so there's this small level of stress that's constantly around, right? And we just had a long conversation with our daughter actually last night, uh, and we were telling her the same thing. Like, yes, this is a scary time, and we should be cautious, but at the same time, we can't keep feeling sorry for ourselves. We have to step up to the occasion. And this is an odd situation that we find ourselves in, but now we have to do more to make sure the people around us are good. And I think that, like you were saying, has a lot to do with perspective. Like, yes, this is a scary time, but at the same time, we're safe here, and we have a family around us that love us, and we have people that care about us, and we have food, and we have, you know, we're safe, we're good. And so now it's time to stop sort of being, how would I say this? Not necessarily feel sorry for yourself, but it's time to kind of step up, right? And see what we can do, and see how we can better our situation and the situation of the people around us.
Spoken like a true pro, Jorge. You know, and a great parent and a great teacher. And I applaud you because we are meant to step up. You know, we are meant to rise to the occasion as humans. We have that ability to rise and to fight and to move forward. It takes a lot of mental fortitude, but perspective is king. And we are safe, and we do. I mean, think about, you know, everything that's happened here in the United States.
Hmm.
It's going to look different, and my heart goes out to people who've lost their jobs. I know those people. And my heart goes out to people who've lost businesses. I know those people. But we're all going to come back in a new and, I think, exciting way. Um, I I don't, for my own life, I don't have a choice to think any other way.
Yeah.
If I would start to go in this, you know, little dismal thing in my brain, it's just not good for anything. It doesn't help anything. So we might as well be positive. We might as well be grateful. We might as well think about how we can improve our lives and everyone else around us, and how we can give. I mean, I'm so happy. One of the things that maybe, you know, we'll get to is just what we talked earlier about the American Red Cross and about
Yeah.
donating plasma. It's my way of giving back, and hopefully I can help save some lives. That's where my brain has to be.
Talk about that a little bit, because yeah, I did want to ask you about that. You were talking about how they're asking for people who had coronavirus to donate plasma now. How does that work?
I don't know a lot about it. I've spoken with my doctor a few times, and it seems as though the Mayo Clinic is running this operation through the American Red Cross. And what I'm going to be doing is donating plasma because I have antibodies now. I'm
Yeah.
like a Superman of antibodies. You know, my doctor told me the chances of you getting this again are next to nil. He said, social distance, wash your hands, but now you're good.
Yeah.
And so people who are fighting for their life in hospitals, for their lives in hospitals, need these antibodies. And so by donating plasma, it might be possible to help them survive this virus.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, that's a great way to give back, because you have gone through it, and now if you can help somebody go through it as well, then I mean that's what an awesome way to help your fellow neighbor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Jorge, if I could, because I think just people are interested, because most people won't get this. And for a lot of people, I know I was the first person that they knew or personally that got it.
Yeah.
And it was the testing procedure.
Hmm.
If I could just talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it was like I had a telemed appointment with my doctor. and he faxed over a prescription, and I drove over to a local hospital, which is Penn State Health, St. Joseph's. It's always been known as St. Joe's Hospital, and it was like a obstacle course with my car. I had 3 different stops, and where I gave him my name, my date of birth, that kind of thing, checked paperwork at another stop, and then finally it was just drive up, and I got to the testing, and it was awful.
Was
30
it?
It was an awful 30 seconds, in the big picture, not a big deal, but they just went up your nostril 15 seconds on each side, way up. I think they were touching my frontal lobe,
Oh my God.
and my eyes were watering so bad. She said, if you need to stop, just let me know. You can turn away and cough or whatever. I made it through, but it was really not pleasant.
Oh man, do you see? But then if you stop, they have to do it again.
Yeah, I wasn't
Right.
stopping for anything.
Right. Oh, that sounds
So
so uncomfortable. I've heard that they've made the testing a little bit less intrusive. Do you know anything about that? Is that true?
I don't, because there was just an article in the paper the other day, and this will be my you know place to air my grievance. Uh, people, understandably, people who are in the hospital, and who are dying, they get their test results back, and frontline health workers, excuse me, frontline health workers, as it should be, they get their test results in about 24 hours. There was an article in our local paper the other day that said, on average, it's about 2 or 3 days for the rest of it, everyone.
Hmm.
It took 10 days for my test result to get back.
Oh man.
And the only other people I know who had it also had a 10-day wait. So it takes a little while, but again, in the big picture, it's not a big deal. And I was really happy to get the call. If I would have been negative, I would have been upset. It's like, what was that? But I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
happy to be positive. I was happy to have the antibodies. I was happy to be on the other side of things. Sorry, excuse me.
No, it's okay. So there's still a little bit of lingering, like your cough, and you said you still get fatigued and things like that.
Yeah, it's just a clearing of the throat,
Hmm.
getting a little bit of a tickle in my throat, little cough here and there. I never had bad respiratory symptoms. I do get tired,
Yeah.
at night, because I do go out. I went out for a 3-mile walk the other day, and when I got home, I fell asleep almost immediately.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's a good thing. You get to rest a little bit, and
yeah.
hopefully, the next day feel better, and the next day feel better, and the next day after that. So, well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know this was sort of short notice, and like I said, I wanted to get your perspective because you are the first person that I know and consider a friend that has gone through this, and so I really wanted to get your story out and to have you share your story so that other people can know that even if this is kind of a scary time and a difficult time. Um, we can still kind of get through this together, and we are here to sort of help each other out, and different people are going through different things, but at the same time, if we can come together as a community, then I think that's all the better for everybody.
Yeah, Jorge, thank you for having me on. I was pleasantly surprised when you asked, because I think this is a rare occurrence. A
Yeah,
lot of people don't know people who've had it, and I can talk a little bit more in depth about it. So I really appreciate being here. I'm always happy to support other people and to help make their experience, if I can make it a little less scary, I'm happy to do that. And I will say, please give your wife my best, and
absolutely.
Andy and Neela, if you see them sometime soon. But I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And I want to end off by, you mentioned earlier, talking about how this has kind of changed your perspective and kind of put things into focus for you a little bit better, and kind of made you realize that you still have work to be done, right? You're not done. You need to keep on going and taking one step at a time, but you're going forward. You're getting better. You're doing these things, and I tend to think that hopefully that I'm hopeful, I should say, that this will also be that route for education as well, right? So at this point we're seeing distance learning going on, and it forces us to kind of take a step back and realize what is really important. And I'm hopeful that when this is all done, we'll keep those lessons that we learned and apply them in our lives and in our teaching.
I absolutely agree. Can you just imagine for a moment the conversations that are going to be had when this is all over, when people feel like teachers and administrators feel like they can get back in the same room
Yeah,
and talk and just discuss this and how do we move forward? I think we're dangerously close to never having another snow day. There's probably not a reason for it anymore,
yeah,
and people were forced into this. It's a really a legitimate plan B. So I hope that a lot of the learnings that we have, and off the top of my head as well, I just want to mention the environment.
yeah.
So many
Hmm.
wonderful things are happening, and I hope that we can notice this and not go back to some of the habits that we've had in the past. But I think a lot of good will come from this. I just have to think that way and feel that way.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we kind of are in positions also to start that momentum, right? To start that ball rolling, especially as educators. Like you said, is when the teachers come back and the administrators come back, the conversations are going to be amazing. And then when the students come back, I mean, you're going to be able to get that ball rolling, right? And really figure out what is important and not necessarily stress about all the fluff that isn't necessarily important and put things in perspective
That's
that way.
absolutely right.
Yeah,
What is important? What is critical? And I also think about the pure joy of human connection
yeah.
that will be just unleashed at
Mhm.
some point. I think that's going to be beautiful for our children and for our teachers. I think everyone misses one another. And I think it's going to be a really great day when we can be back in the room and we can hug and we can laugh together. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for coming on the show, and I'm glad you're feeling better. We got to talk again sometime soon.
Yeah, I
So
would
I
love
love
that,
having you on
Jorge.
the show. I love these conversations. So at some point we'll do it again.
Thank you, Jorge. I wish you and your family the very best.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Mhm.